Recap in minutes. In today's video, we will be going through a war drama film entitled Beneath Hill 60. There will be spoilers ahead, chill out and enjoy. The movie begins in May 1916, wherein an Australian lieutenant soldier, Oliver Woodward, holds a candle to generate light inside the dark tunnel. Eventually, Woodward takes out his pistol from his pocket after hearing a noise inside. Afterward, Woodward proceeds on walking to look for the way out when suddenly he meets two soldiers. Due to that, Woodward immediately introduces himself as their new commanding officer. The older man soldier clarifies that he must first talk to Corporal Fraser about it. Afterward, Woodward continues to explore the 30 feet below the Wester Front tunnel. However, Woodward suddenly halts from walking after hearing someone call him. Due to that, Woodward turns around and meets a young Australian soldier, Frank Tiffin, suffering from a shell shock. Shortly after, Woodward helps Tiffin by taking his stethoscope to hear the walls thumping because of the Germans' activity. While Woodward remains listening, Tiffin, on the other hand, keeps on notifying Woodward that the German will bloody break through once they break the tunnel walls. Due to that, Woodward ends Tiffin's delusion and panic by saying that it is only his heartbeat. Afterward, Woodward attempts to leave Tiffin alone, but Tiffin seems scared and begs Woodward to be with him. So, Woodward has no choice but to take Tiffin and leave the area together. Finally, Woodward finds Corporal Fraser and the other soldiers in the dressing station. Woodward introduces himself as Fraser's new commanding officer. However, Fraser seems unhappy about it, and discourteously answers Woodward's question about Sergeant Simpson, saying that the man he is looking for is already dead. Due to that, Woodward quickly moves to another topic and calls Norman Morris. As quick as he is, Morris stands up to introduce himself. It is followed by Tom Dwyer and Billy Bacon, who also present themselves. After that, Woodward reassigns Dwyer and Morris to take over the listening post where Tiffin was assigned. That way, Woodward can relieve Tiffin from shell shock. Once Dwyer and Morris leave the headquarters, Woodward orders Tiffin next, wherein Tiffin will show him the officer's dugout. So, Tiffin takes Woodward out of the tunnel and shows him the trench outside where airstrikes, explosions, and gunshots from Germans arise. Before Woodward and Tiffin even get killed by the Germans' attack, they safely enter the officer's dugout. Once inside, Woodward suddenly meets Bill McBride, his previous schoolmate in a mining school. Woodward also meets Lieutenant Bob Clayton, one of the Northumberland Fusiliers. Afterward, Woodward starts discussing the Red House owned by the Germans with McBride. Technically, it is known as solid as it shows from the report of Clayton that their artillery fails on blasting away the said house. Eventually, the film transitions 18 months before the war began. Apparently, it shows Woodward's flashbacks where he visits the Waddell house. Mrs. Waddell happily takes him inside to meet the whole family, including Marjorie Waddell, a young woman 10 years Woodward's junior and his soon-to-be lover. It is also revealed that Woodward was once an Australian miner supplying copper for the war effort, not until Mr. Waddell pressures him to enlist and join the British Army's 1st Australian Tunnelling Company. Meanwhile, Dwyer and Morris check 102 Drive to see if there is any sign of digging from the Germans. However, Dwyer finds nothing. So Morris tells Dwyer that he notices the wrong with their candle that keeps their area dark. Dwyer reveals that it is not the candle but the air. Fortunately, Morris calms down. However, a sudden breakthrough of the two Germans into the tunnel occurs. Morris immediately takes his gun and shoots the first German tunneler twice. Afterward, Morris waits for the entrance of the next German tunneler, but it shows the aggressiveness to attack. Due to that, Morris and Dwyer fall to the ground after the German tunneler pushes them. It is revealed that Morris and Dwyer successfully dispatch both German tunnelers after the sudden attack. However, a German explosive suddenly goes off, killing Dwyer right after checking the dead German tunneler. Meanwhile, Woodward and McBride also hear the explosion from 102 Drive, so McBride calls to check any report. Shocked, Woodward discovers it was from Dwyer and Morris area. Woodward immediately leaves the officer's dugout to check 102 Drive. On the other hand, the sappers immediately go to 102 Drive to rescue Dwyer and Morris. Fortunately, they successfully recover Morris, yet fails to save Dwyer as he is already dead. The sappers, including Fraser and Woodward, also discover that the explosion was from the German scheme. Once again, the film transitions to Woodward's flashbacks, wherein Woodward has left no choice but to join British Army's 1st Australian Tunnelling Company right after Moffat dies. Technically, Woodward will serve the Royal Engineers once he enters the troop. Despite Marjorie's disagreement about him joining the war, Woodward still pursues to enlist. Going back to the present, the commanding officer, Colonel Wilson Rutledge, suddenly confronts Woodward. Upon entering the dressing station, Rutledge confirms that Woodward is aware of a fortified German position in the Red House that can enfilade their trench. Woodward accepts to be the demolition man that will destroy the Red House. Afterward, Rutledge gives Woodward a deadline where he should be done by dawn, despite Woodward's proposal about tunneling beneath the red house that may take days to accomplish. Once Rutledge leaves, Woodward, and the sappers, including Fraser, begin to discuss their plan. Eventually, Woodward first discusses their need to cross no man's land to set a charge. Woodward announces that he will need 2 men. Morris immediately stands up to volunteer himself. Torrin also attempts to join Woodward, but Fraser commands him to sit down as he will take the position to come with Woodward. Later at night, Woodward, Fraser, and Morris begin their mission to trespass the Red House. Fortunately, Fraser gives Woodward tips on protecting himself from the Germans before they even start walking outside their trench. When they begin to advance, Woodward well follows Fraser's advice not to get killed by the Germans. However, the German Boris still spots them and shoots after the flare glides through the sky. So, they quickly hide afterward. After that, they continue advancing until they safely reach the Red House. Once they are near the Germans' base, Fraser suggests to Woodward that they should go under. Woodward agrees, and they start going to the Germans' cellar to plant explosives underneath the Red House. Fortunately, Woodward, Fraser, and Morris accomplish their mission. After that, the 3 quickly make their way back to the British lines. However, Morris notices that the cable reel is too short, so he informs Fraser and Woodward about it. Woodward commands Morris to retrieve the exploder before the Germans find out the charge. Leaving him no choice, Morris accepts the order and runs ahead while the 2 distract the German Boris. While Woodward and Fraser wait, Woodward suddenly discovers wounded Clayton nearby. Woodward did not hesitate to approach and help him. Unfortunately, Clayton is the person who was tasked to cut a gap in the wire obstacle for them yet failed to protect himself from the attacking Germans. Woodward immediately carries Clayton to take him to the British lines afterward. Once Fraser discovers Woodward carrying out Clayton, he immediately helps Woodward to aid Clayton's wound. On the other hand, Morris safely arrives with the exploder. Fraser quickly assists Woodward in destroying the Red House by taking Clayton's advice about the German patterns. After following Clayton's warning, Woodward activates the exploder to destroy the Red House. Fortunately, it works, so Woodward thanks Clayton for it. Clayton suddenly dies of his lesions even before Woodward takes him back to their trench. The following day, the Australian troops suddenly have a friendly game of rugby with the British soldiers. Fortunately, it turns out good, especially for Woodward, who unexpectedly receives a promotion from Rutledge to captain. Woodward subsequently promotes Fraser as his sergeant, allowing the other soldiers to congratulate them. However, Woodward suddenly announces the news he received from Rutledge, wherein they will be moved up to the lines to the Ypres, Belgium, at Hill 60. Woodward also commands them to get their gear and load up at midnight. Later at night, Woodward's company finally arrives at Messine Ridge, Belgium. However, they suddenly discover an occurring battle in the area. Woodward immediately finds a person that can tell where General Fosse is. Unfortunately, Fosse can be found at Hill 60, so Woodward has no choice but to inform his troops to go south and follow him. Tiffin, Walter Snedden, and Billy Bacon suddenly separated from the battalion because of the German machine gun fire. Unfortunately, they got pinned down and lost sight of their comrades. Meanwhile, Fraser informs Woodward they left the young boys behind. On the other hand, the young boys struggle to find the British lines but eventually hear shouts from their comrades from about 25 yards away. Being the fastest runner, Bacon has left no choice but to volunteer to distract the Germans. Bacon tells Tiffin and Walter to take his time running for the British line while he buys them some time. Fortunately, Tiffin and Walter succeed and make it to the British line, but Bacon, on the other hand, eventually gets killed mere inches from safety. Shortly after, the unit continues to walk to Hill 60 when suddenly Tiffin finds Bacon's corpse. Due to that, the rest of the troops halt from walking to give tribute to Bacon. Afterward, Woodward orders Tiffin to take his disc and pay book as they will bury him in the morning. Afterward, the unit wears gas masks to protect themselves. Once again, Woodward meets McBride on their trench and discovers they will work together at Hill 60. Fortunately, McBride offers Woodward's troop the bunk down the track. So, Woodward immediately informs his soldiers to rest and get their hours of sleep before they set up for another battle. Once more, the film transitions to Woodward's flashbacks, wherein he, fortunately, got permission from Mr. Wardle to write a letter for Marjorie while he was away. Going back to the present, Woodward goes along with McBride to inspect the tunnel. However, they suddenly meet a Canadian tunneler, who reveals that both Canadian and British engineers are planning 1 million pounds of ammonium nitrate in 21 massive mine chambers. But besides tunneling deep below the Messine Ridge with explosions, Woodward also discovers the Caterpillar mine 500 feet down the tunnel. After gathering the information, Woodward receives a task to maintain 2 of the mines dug by the Canadians, the Hill 60 and the Caterpillar. Although there is no exact detail on detonating all the explosives, Woodward must know when to blow it up before the Germans stack their trenches and kill them. Shortly after, Woodward plans a meeting with his troop to give their tasks. He orders the last mission to Fraser, where Fraser will check the water line to know the depth from the surface and at what depth the sand becomes clay. Later, Woodward checks the tunnel and notices the fast dripping waters inside. Woodward thinks of something to keep the water table from inundating the explosives, but he discusses his ideas first with McBride until Woodward finalizes his concept. Afterward, McBride and Woodward talk to General Fosse and propose sinking a shaft to a gallery beneath the Berlin sap and installing electric pumps to lift the water. Fosse asks for Rutledge's opinion, wherein Rutledge disagrees, for he believes that it is impossible to go through the wet sand over 90 feet deep with unfeasible shafts. Due to that, Woodward thoroughly explains they would only build the shaft head 20 feet below ground level. Woodward also assures that their buildup will only take 3 weeks. Fosse agrees and lets Woodward do his thing. Woodward seeks help from the soldiers to construct an enormous shaft with him. However, it is also revealed that Woodward digs multiple diversion tunnels to confuse the German. Later, Woodward shows Fosse and Rutledge's plan, which eventually works as it takes out the water inside the tunnel. Afterward, Woodward attempts to show Rutledge the 2 diversion tunnels for German when Jim Snedden, Walter's father, suddenly appears. Jim reports to Woodward about the second diversion ready to blow off, and the Germans would likely be setting off the explosives soon. However, after Rutledge hears Jim telling Woodward that he is the only person at the post at the moment, he eventually orders Rutledge to return immediately. Unfortunately, Jim gets buried and killed inside the diversion tunnel after Rutledge orders him to return even if it is no longer necessary. Eventually, the Germans discover their plan and the diversions that Woodward created. General German orders his captain, Babeck, to dig toward the main tunnel. Meanwhile, Woodward also learns about an attack tunnel that Germans are digging in response. Later, Woodward receives a message from Fosse that he will fire the Hill 60 and Caterpillar mines within 36 hours. Technically, Woodward will be the final 2 in the sequence as Fosse will fire the mines first. However, Woodward suddenly discovers that the Germans will hit their mines in 9 hours after calculating the depth in the tunnel. Fosse gives Woodward permission to solve it on his own. The movie ends with a victory of the Australian Army after successfully destroying the exploratory shaft with minutes to spare. However, the unfortunate Tiffin gets trapped inside as the tunnel collapses. And it is revealed that it is because the charge they used weakens clay. Fraser quickly runs to halt the detonation of the mines because Tiffin is still trapped inside. However, Woodward ignores Fraser's plea and continues to detonate 2 of the mines at the start of the Battle of Messine. Despite surviving the war, Woodward is still haunted by his thoughts of Tiffin. But on the brighter side, the film shows that Woodward eventually marries Marjorie and the surviving members of his unit attend his wedding together once more. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this and to help the channel grow.